The forest was quiet, only the sound of dry leaves breaking under Daniel's boots. He had come here many times before, but tonight felt different. There was a strange smell in the air, like burned metal mixed with wet soil. He tightened his jacket against the cold and looked up. A pale blue light flickered between the trees, not from the moon, but from something hidden. Daniel followed the glow. His heart beat faster with every step. The air felt heavy, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. He reached a small clearing and froze. In the middle of the ground lay twisted pieces of metal, smoking and cracked. It looked like part of a ship, something not from Earth. His breath caught in his throat. Then he heard it. A soft sound, like a whimper. It came from the shadows near the broken ship. Daniel turned his head slowly. His eyes widened. At first he thought it was a child, small and thin, but when she stepped into the moonlight, he knew she was not human. The girl's skin shimmered faintly, almost glowing silver in the dark. Her eyes were large and bright, too bright for a human. Her hair looked like strands of fine crystal, catching the moonlight and breaking it into small sparks. She stumbled forward, weak and trembling. Her small hands reached out as if begging. Daniel's instinct told him to step back, but something in her frightened face stopped him. She looked lost, scared, and desperate. Slowly he stretched out his hand, showing he meant no harm, but the girl moved faster than he expected. She darted forward and grabbed his hand. Before he could speak, she lowered her head and sank her teeth gently into his skin. Daniel winced, pain shooting up his arm. He almost pulled away, but something strange held him still. The bite wasn't just playful. It burned, not like an animal bite, but like fire and electricity together. His breath hitched as his skin glowed faintly where her teeth touched. "Hey, stop," Daniel whispered, but his voice shook more than he wanted. The girl's mouth released him. She stared at him with wide, glowing eyes. Her lips moved as if forming words, but no sound came out. Daniel looked down at his hand. A strange mark spread across his skin, glowing faint blue before slowly fading. His head felt light, his vision blurred for a moment. He saw flashes, not from his own mind but from hers. He saw tall towers made of crystal, alien skies with two suns burning above and strange creatures running in terror. He saw fire, smoke, and shadows hunting through narrow streets. Then the vision vanished, leaving him dizzy and breathless. What was that?" he whispered to himself. He looked at the girl. She was shaking, her small frame bent with exhaustion, her glowing eyes filled with fear. She clutched his arm like a lifeline. Daniel wanted to pull back, to escape this madness, but something deep inside stopped him. She wasn't just some strange creature, she was a child, lost and hunted, and somehow through that bite, he could feel her fear like it was his own. The forest around them rustled. Daniel turned sharply. His senses felt sharper now, like his ears caught every tiny sound. Branches snapped in the distance. Heavy footsteps moved between the trees. Someone or something was coming. The girl whimpered again, pulling at his jacket with weak fingers. Her eyes begged him, not with words, but with pure desperation. Daniel's chest tightened. He didn't understand what was happening, but he knew one thing. Whoever or whatever was coming, it wasn't safe. He lifted the girl into his arms, surprised at how light she was. She clung to him tightly, pressing her face against his chest. Daniel's hand still burned where she had bitten him, but he pushed the pain aside. His mind raced. His life had been normal until this night, and now he was carrying an alien child through the forest while something dangerous hunted them. He ran back the way he had come, the girl holding on as if her life depended on it. The blue glow of the wreck faded behind them. The footsteps in the distance grew louder, closer. Daniel's breath came fast. His heart pounded. He had no plan, no weapon, nothing except the strange mark on his hand and the small girl who trusted him. The night seemed darker than before. The trees closed around them, the air filled with the sound of pursuit. Daniel didn't know where to go, but he knew he couldn't stop. The girl's glowing eyes looked up at him, full of fear, but also trust. Daniel swallowed hard. His life had just changed forever, and he didn't even know why. The hunt had begun. The morning came too slowly. Daniel lay in his small cabin on the edge of the forest. His body felt heavy, his head throbbed, and his hand still burned where the alien girl had bitten him. He sat up, sweat dripping down his face. His skin around the bite mark glowed faintly blue, pulsing like a heartbeat. He looked at the girl curled up in the corner, wrapped in an old blanket he had given her. Her eyes were closed, but her chest rose and fell quickly, as if she was dreaming something bad. She looked fragile, almost breakable. Yet Daniel could not forget the strange visions her bite had forced into his mind. They had been too real, not like imagination, but like stolen memories. Daniel rubbed his eyes and whispered, "What did you do to me?" His voice made her stir. Her glowing eyes opened slowly. She looked at him, then at his hand. Her lips moved, but again, no clear words came out. Instead, she made a soft sound like a plea. Daniel frowned. He wanted to be angry. He wanted to demand answers, but when her eyes filled with tears, his heart softened. He walked to her slowly, crouching down. "You bit me, and now I see things that are not mine," he said, trying to keep his voice calm. "Was that you? Did you show me your world?" The girl touched his hand gently. Her small fingers pressed over the glowing mark. A sudden wave of warmth rushed into his arm. For a moment, he felt her thoughts again, not full words, but feelings. Fear, hunger, loneliness, and something like trust. Daniel swallowed hard. He had never experienced anything like this. It was as if she had tied a piece of her soul to his, and through that bond, she could share not just visions, but emotions. He stood up and stepped back. His breathing quickened. "No, this isn't real. I must be sick," he whispered, but deep down he knew it was real. His senses had changed. He could hear the birds outside more sharply. He could smell the smoke from last night's wreck still hanging in the air. He could even sense the girl's heartbeat without touching her. Suddenly his head pounded again. Another vision flashed before his eyes. He saw the girl running through a dark street, lights flashing above her, creatures with metallic armor chasing her. He heard voices shouting in a language he didn't understand. He felt her terror as if it were his own. When the vision ended, Daniel staggered and leaned against the wall. His chest rose and fell fast, his knuckles white from holding himself upright. The girl reached for him again, shaking her head as if begging him not to fight the bond. Daniel looked at her, sweat dripping down his neck. "They were chasing you," he whispered. "Those hunters, I saw them." Her glowing eyes widened. She nodded quickly, pointing to herself and then pointing out the window toward the forest. She said one broken word, her voice trembling. "Chased." Daniel's stomach turned. It was true. Whoever she was being hunted. And now, because of that bite, he was tied to her. A loud crack outside made him jump. The girl froze, her eyes wide with panic. Daniel grabbed the old hunting rifle he kept above his door. His hands shook as he pulled it down. The sound came again, like boots stepping on dry branches. He peeked outside the cabin. The forest looked calm, but Daniel's skin tingled with warning. It was not just instinct, it was something deeper. The bond was warning him. His nerves were sharper, his muscles ready. He could almost feel the danger moving closer. He turned to the girl. "We have to go," he whispered. She shook her head, weak and afraid, but Daniel lifted her gently into his arms. He could feel her heart beating against his chest. The glowing mark on his hand warmed again, as if it was urging him forward. He slipped out the back of the cabin, moving quietly through the trees. His ears caught every sound: the wind, the rustle of leaves, the distant crunch of footsteps. He moved faster, keeping to the shadows. The girl clung to him, whispering broken words he couldn't fully understand. As they moved deeper into the forest, Daniel realized the truth. The bite was not just an accident. It was a bond, a link between two lives. He could feel her fear, her hunger, even her small sparks of hope. And through that bond, she could feel his determination, his will not to let her be taken. For a moment, Daniel almost hated her for dragging him into this. He could have walked away. He could have left her by the wreck. But now, it was too late. Her fate was tied to his. Another sound came from behind, a low growl, not human, not animal. Daniel gripped the rifle tighter. His hand steady now, he felt strength flowing into him from the bond. It was as if her survival instinct was fueling his body. He whispered to himself, "Whatever you did to me, I'll use it to keep you alive." The girl's glowing eyes met his. For the first time, she managed 2 words, soft but clear. "Protect me." Daniel tightened his jaw. His life had changed forever, and the bite was only the beginning. The forest was darker now, clouds covered the moon. Daniel moved quickly between the trees, holding the alien girl close. Every sound made him tense. Every shadow seemed alive. He knew they were not alone. The footsteps he had heard earlier had not been his imagination. The girl clung to him tightly. Her body was trembling, and every so often she whispered broken words. Her eyes glowed softly, a pale light in the darkness. Daniel wanted to cover her glow, afraid it would give them away, but he didn't have the heart. She was already terrified. Hiding her light would only frighten her more. The rifle in his hand felt heavy. He had used it before for hunting deer, never for fighting something unknown. But the bond in his hand pulsed again, a faint warmth spreading through his body. It made him sharper. It made him aware of danger before it came. He stopped suddenly, pressing his back against a tree. His heart pounded. He could hear it, slow, heavy footsteps moving. In a circle around them, not one set but many. Whoever was following them was closing in. The girl's breathing quickened. She pressed her small fingers against his chest, and through the bond, he felt her terror. It was overwhelming, filling his mind like fire. He had to steady himself. His own fear could not drown him now. A low growl came from the left. Daniel turned quickly, rifle ready, but saw nothing. Then another sound came from the right, a snapping branch. The hunters were playing with them, testing him, circling. He crouched low, whispering to the girl, "Stay quiet." She nodded, tears shining in her glowing eyes. Then, from the shadows, he saw movement. A tall figure stepped into view, armor reflecting faint light. Its face was hidden under a mask with red glowing lines. It carried a strange weapon in its clawed hand. Behind it, more shadows moved. At least 3, maybe 4. Daniel's throat went dry. They were not human. Their bodies were bulky, their movements sharp and controlled. The girl buried her face against his chest, whispering one word that made his blood run cold. "Hunters." The lead hunter raised its weapon slowly. Scanning the trees, it spoke in a harsh language Daniel did not understand, but the meaning was clear. They were looking for her. Daniel tightened his grip on the rifle. His instincts screamed at him to run, but he knew he couldn't outrun them. Not with her in his arms, his only choice was to survive long enough to escape deeper into the forest. He slowly moved back into the shadows, keeping the trees between him and the hunters. His breath came fast, but he forced himself to stay calm. The girl's bond pulsed again, and suddenly he felt her memories flicker into his mind. She had seen these hunters before, chasing her through streets, cornering her people. Their weapons were designed to stun and capture, not always to kill, but sometimes they killed anyway, especially if they were ordered to. Daniel felt her terror like it was his own. The hunters spread out, their steps heavy and steady. Daniel crouched lower, trying to move silently. The girl's tiny hands clutched at his jacket. He whispered without sound, "Trust me," even though he wasn't sure he trusted himself. A twig cracked under his boot. The nearest hunter's head snapped toward him. Red lights flashed on its mask. Daniel's heart stopped. In that moment, the bond flared, and he felt the girl's energy surge through him. His legs moved faster than he thought possible. His body reacted before his mind did. He darted between trees, the girl in his arms, shots fired behind him. Strange blue bolts cutting through the night. The forest lit up with flashes of light. Trees exploded where the bolts struck, showering them with sparks and broken bark. Daniel ran harder, his lungs burning. The hunters shouted to each other in their harsh language, chasing him. He could feel their presence growing closer. The girl pressed her head against him, whispering again and again, "Protect, protect," as if her words were keeping him alive. His foot caught on a root. He stumbled but didn't fall. The bond pushed his body forward, giving him strength he didn't know he had. He leapt over a log, ducked under branches, his arms never loosened around the girl. Finally, he spotted a rocky slope ahead. A cave's dark mouth yawned open between the stones. Without thinking, he rushed inside. The shadows swallowed them. The hunters' lights swept past the cave entrance. But they didn't see him slip. Inside, Daniel pressed his back against the cold stone wall. His chest rose and fell sharply. The girl clung to him, her glowing eyes wide in the darkness. Outside, the hunter's footsteps moved past. Slowly fading deeper into the forest, Daniel didn't relax, not yet. He knew they would search everywhere. He had bought time, nothing more. He looked down at the girl in his arms. Her small body shivered. Her glowing eyes filled with tears. She whispered softly, "They find me." Daniel shook his head firmly. "Not if I stop them," he said, his voice steady though his heart was racing. He didn't know how long he could keep running, or how strong the hunters truly were. But one thing had become clear tonight. He was no longer just a bystander. The bite had tied their fates together, and now, hunted in the dark, he would fight for her as if she were his own blood. The cave was silent, but Daniel knew the night was far from over. The real hunt had only just begun. The cave was silent except for Daniel's heavy breathing. He leaned against the cold stone wall, sweat dripping down his face. The girl sat close, her glowing eyes fixed on him. Her small hand still shook, but she didn't let go of his sleeve. Outside, the forest was alive with distant echoes. The hunters were still out there, searching. Daniel closed his eyes for a moment. His muscles ached, but there was something else. The mark on his hand burned, glowing faintly in the dark. It pulsed with the same rhythm as his heartbeat, and with every pulse a strange strength flowed into his body. He opened his eyes and looked at the girl. "What did you do to me?" he whispered. The girl tilted her head, struggling to form words. She touched his hand again, her fingers trembling. And suddenly Daniel felt it, her thoughts pressing against his mind. He saw flashes again. Her people, standing tall under the twin suns, their warriors biting each other's hands before battle, sharing strength and speed. He saw the bond as more than just memory sharing. It was survival. It was power. Daniel gasped and pulled his hand back. "That bite. It's making me stronger," he said. His voice was low, almost fearful. But the girl nodded, her glowing eyes soft. She managed to whisper one broken word. "Protector." Daniel's chest tightened. He hadn't chosen this. He was just a man, living a quiet life on the edge of the forest, and now somehow he had become her protector. The sound of movement outside brought him back. Shadows flickered at the cave's mouth. The hunters hadn't given up. Daniel's jaw tightened. He couldn't keep running forever. If they found him again, he needed to fight. He lifted his rifle, but even as he did, he knew it wasn't enough. Those hunters carried weapons he didn't understand. They were stronger, faster, better trained. Yet, deep inside, the bond burned hotter, like a fire waiting to be unleashed. The girl reached for. His chest pressing her hand against his heart, Daniel felt another surge of warmth. His body trembled. His senses sharpened more than before. He could hear the smallest drip of water deep in the cave. He could smell the metallic scent of the hunter's weapons outside. His muscles felt lighter, faster, alive. He whispered to himself, "This isn't possible." But when he gripped the rifle again, his hands no longer shook, his breath was steady. His fear hadn't vanished, but it no longer ruled him. The hunters' voices echoed from outside, harsh and mechanical. Daniel crouched lower, pulling the girl behind a stone. The glow of red lights swept past the cave, searching. They were closer now. He knew they would not leave until they had found her. Daniel's heartbeat matched the glow of the bond on his hand. His instincts told him what to do. Not run this time, but stand. He looked at the girl. Her glowing eyes filled with fear. He placed a hand on her shoulder and said firmly, "If they come in, I'll stop them." Her lips trembled. She whispered again, "Protect." The first shadow entered the cave, tall and armored. Its weapon, raised, red lights on its mask scanned the darkness. Daniel crouched low, his muscles tense. He felt the bond ignite, not just in his hand, but through his whole body. The hunter moved closer, unaware. Daniel stepped from the shadows and swung his rifle like a club. The strike landed hard against the side of the hunter's helmet. The sound of metal cracking filled the cave. The alien stumbled, surprised. Daniel's own strength shocked him. The blow should not have been that strong, but the bond had made him more than human. The second hunter rushed in, weapon firing. Blue bolts of light blasted the cave walls. Daniel ducked and rolled, moving faster than he thought possible. His body reacted before his mind. He charged forward, tackling the hunter with a force that sent them both crashing against the stone. The girl cried out, covering her ears as the cave shook with the fight. Daniel's knuckles bled as he struck again and again. His body burned with borrowed strength. The hunter tried to rise, but Daniel pinned it down, the glowing mark on his hand burning brighter with every strike. When the last hunter at the cave mouth saw his comrades fall, it shouted in its harsh tongue and retreated, disappearing back into the trees. Daniel stood in the middle of the cave, chest heaving, his rifle broken, his hands bloody, but his eyes sharp and alive. The girl crawled to him, her small hands touching his arm gently, her glowing eyes filled with tears, but also with something new. "Hope," she whispered, struggling with the word. "Strong." Daniel looked at her, breathing hard. He had never felt strong before. Not like this. He had been ordinary, just a man trying to survive. But now, through her bond, he was something else, something more. He sank to the ground, leaning back against the wall. His body ached with exhaustion, but the bond still pulsed, reminding him it was not gone. It was inside him now. He stared into the darkness of the cave, knowing the hunters would return with more. This fight was only the beginning, but deep inside, he no longer felt helpless. For the first time, he believed he could face them, and he would. The cave smelled of smoke and scorched stone. Daniel sat with his back against the wall. Breathing hard, his arms shook from the fight and his knuckles were raw. The girl sat beside him, clutching his sleeve. Her glowing eyes never left his face. She looked at him with something between fear and trust. For a short while, the forest outside was silent, but Daniel knew it was not over. The hunters would return, not fewer, but more. They had seen his strength. They would not underestimate him again. The bond still pulsed through his hand. A strange warmth moved in his veins, stronger than any rush of adrenaline. He remembered the fight, the way his body had moved with unnatural speed. His blows had been stronger than his own muscles could give. The girl had given him that. The bite had changed him. He looked at her. "Why me?" he whispered. She tilted her head, searching for words. At last, she said softly, "Protector. Chosen." Her voice was weak but clear enough to make him pause. Daniel's chest tightened. He wanted to deny it. He wasn't a protector. He was just a man. But the look in her eyes told him otherwise. To her, he was the only shield left. Before he could speak again, a sudden noise outside made him freeze, not the clumsy movement of animals, but deliberate, heavy footsteps. More hunters. Daniel grabbed the broken rifle, but this time when the figures stepped into the cave, they did not attack. 3 of them came, armored like before, weapons ready, but one was different, taller, carrying no gun. Its mask had gold markings. The leader, Daniel thought. The leader raised a clawed hand, signaling for the others to hold back. Then it spoke, its voice deep, mechanical. But this time, Daniel could almost understand. The bond twisted the sounds into meaning inside his head. "Human, you protect her," it said slowly. "Do you even know what she is?" Daniel tightened his grip on the broken rifle. His eyes narrowed. "She's just a child," The leader laughed, a harsh metallic sound. A child? No, she is far more. She is blood of the exiled queen, last of her line. Her death means peace. Her life means war. Daniel's stomach dropped. He looked at the girl, her glowing eyes filled with tears. She shook her head, hiding her face against his arm. She knew. It was true. The leader took a step forward. Give her to us, human. Walk away, live. This is not your fight. Daniel's heart pounded, his mind raced. He could leave. He could hand her over and save himself. But the bond burned in his hand stronger than ever. He felt her terror, her desperation, her silent plea not to be abandoned. He shook his head slowly. No, he said, his voice steady. If you want her, you'll have to take her over me. The leader tilted its head, studying him. Why? She is not your kind. She is trouble. Already she has changed you. Daniel's eyes hardened. Because she's alive. Because she needs me. And because you're wrong if you think I'll give her up. The leader's mask glowed brighter. Its voice grew sharper. Foolish human, do you even know what that bond will do? It will burn you, it will break you, no protector survives long. Daniel's jaw tightened, he didn't answer. He couldn't show doubt, not in front of the girl. The leader raised its hand again. The other hunters shifted, but did not fire. Instead, the leader's voice lowered, almost calm. Then remember this, human. You protect her now, but soon others will come. Nobles, armies, even whole worlds. They will not stop until she is gone. With that, the leader motioned, and the hunters stepped back. Their red lights vanished into the forest, leaving only silence behind. Daniel exhaled slowly, his whole body trembling. He sank back against the wall, his mind spinning with the words he had heard. The girl looked up at him. Her lips trembled. She whispered weakly, "They kill me." Daniel brushed her hair back gently. His hand still glowed faintly. "Not while I'm here," he said, his voice firm, though his heart felt heavy. He knew the truth now. She was not just a lost child. She carried something greater, something dangerous. Her life meant more than either of them had understood, and because of her bite, because of the bond, he had been pulled into a war he didn't even know existed. He looked at the dark cave entrance, listening to the fading echoes of the hunters. They would return, and next time they wouldn't leave without a fight. Daniel clenched his fist. The bond pulsed, strong and alive. He whispered to himself, "Then let them come." The girl leaned against him, her glowing eyes closing as exhaustion overtook her. But even in her sleep, she held onto his sleeve as if afraid he would disappear. Daniel stayed awake, staring into the dark. His life had been simple once. Now it was tangled with secrets of alien queens and mercenaries. And yet, he felt no regret. He would not abandon her, no matter what the truth was. The hunters had given him a warning, but all Daniel heard was a promise of the battles yet to come, and he would be ready. The sun had not yet risen when Daniel carried the girl out of the cave. The air was cold, mist clinging to the ground. His body ached from the fight, but the bond in his hand kept pushing him forward. Every step was heavy, yet he could not stop. The mercenaries would return, and this time they would not let him walk away. The girl leaned weakly against his chest, her glowing eyes half closed. She had not eaten in days. Her body was fragile, but her spirit still burned. Daniel could feel it through the bond, even when she was silent. He remembered the leader's words, nobles, armies, whole worlds, all hunting her. He didn't know how long he could protect her, but he knew he had to keep moving. He needed shelter. He needed ground where he could fight back. By midday, he reached the edge of the old military ruins. The place had been abandoned for decades. Broken concrete. Walls stood like skeletons. Rusted metal beams stretched toward the gray sky. Nature had taken back much of it, vines covering shattered towers. But to Daniel, it was a fortress waiting to be used. He set the girl down gently inside a cracked bunker. The air smelled of dust and rust, but it was safer than the open forest. She looked at him with tired eyes, her lips moved, whispering, Safe? Daniel knelt beside her, brushing her silver crystal hair back. Safe for now, he said. His voice was calm, but deep inside, he knew it was only temporary. He searched the ruins quickly, finding old crates, broken wires, pieces of steel. With shaking hands, he set traps, rigged sharp metal across entry points. He didn't know if it would stop them, but it might slow them down. The girl watched him silently, her glowing eyes following his every move. Hours passed, and the silence grew heavy. Then, as night fell, the bond pulsed hot in his hand. Daniel froze, his senses sharpened. The hunters were close. He could feel their presence like shadows pressing in on his mind. He grabbed the rifle he had repaired with scraps. His chest tightened. He had fought them once, but now more were coming. He could not fail. Not here. The first sound came from the west side of the ruins, boots crunching glass. Then another from the east. Daniel's heart raced. They were surrounding the bunker. The girl's glowing eyes widened. She reached for his hand. Her voice broke as she whispered, "Stay." Daniel squeezed her hand back. "I'm not leaving," he said firmly. A blast shook the wall. Dust rained from the ceiling. The mercenaries stormed in, red lights flashing on their masks, weapons raised. Daniel fired. The rifle's shot echoing through the ruins. The first hunter fell, sparks flying from its armor. But more rushed forward, blue bolts of energy lighting. Up the bunker, Daniel ducked behind a wall, pulling the girl close. His pulse matched the bond's glow. His body moved faster than thought. He rose again, firing, then striking with the rifle's butt. His strength was no longer his alone. The bond gave him speed, precision, fury. But the hunters kept coming. Their weapons tore holes in the walls. The ruins shook with every blast. Daniel's arms burned, his breath came ragged. He was being pushed back step by step. The girl cried out, not in fear, but in defiance. She pressed her glowing hand against his back, and Daniel felt another surge. His vision blurred. His muscles roared with fire. He charged forward, slamming, into two hunters at once. The impact cracked their armor. He tore their weapons away, using one to blast another attacker. Sparks, smoke, and shouts filled the bunker. Daniel's body screamed with pain, but the bond drowned it out. He fought like a man possessed, like a beast defending its last ground. The hunters stumbled back, surprised at the human's ferocity. But then, the leader entered. Taller, stronger. Its golden-marked mask glowing. Like fire, it raised its weapon slowly, its voice booming. "You cannot win, human. You burn yourself with every strike. She will drain you until nothing remains." Daniel spat blood from his lip, his voice steady. "Then I'll burn until you're gone," the leader charged. The two clashed in the heart of the ruins. Stone cracked under their blows, sparks flew. With every strike, the girl screamed, her voice breaking, "Protect!" Her small body glowed brighter than ever. Daniel felt it, her strength pouring into him, not just power, but will, courage, desperation. With a roar, he drove the stolen weapon into the leader's chest. The alien staggered, sparks exploding from its armor. It fell back, crashing through the broken wall. The silence that followed was heavy. The other hunters froze. Then, one by one, they retreated into the shadows, dragging the fallen leader away. Their red lights vanished into the night, leaving only smoke and silence. Daniel collapsed to his knees, chest heaving. The rifle clattered. To the ground, his whole body shook with exhaustion. The bond burned like fire. He thought he might pass out. The girl crawled to him, her glowing eyes full of tears. She pressed her forehead against his, whispering weakly, "Protector, mine." Daniel wrapped his arms around her, pulling her close. He had no strength left, but he had kept his promise. For now, they had survived. The ruins were broken, the air thick with smoke. But Daniel knew this was not the end. The leaders, words haunted him. More would come, stronger, more ruthless. But as he held the girl in his arms, he whispered through clenched teeth, "Let them come, because in the ruins, in the fire, in the bond that burned between them, he had found something worth fighting for." The ruins were silent now, smoke rising in thin streams through cracks in the broken roof. Daniel sat against the wall, his body trembling. Every muscle screamed with pain, but the bond in his hand still glowed faintly, keeping him awake, keeping him alive. The girl sat beside him, her small hands clutching his torn jacket. Her glowing eyes stared at him with a mixture of relief and fear. She whispered softly, "Safe." As if trying to convince herself, Daniel looked at her, his chest heavy. "For now," he said, his voice low. The bond pulsed again, slower this time, not with battle fire, but with something calmer. He felt her emotions more clearly, her hunger, her exhaustion, her loneliness. She had lost everything, her people, her home, and now he was all she had left. Daniel's throat tightened. He brushed a strand of her crystal-like hair back. "You're not alone anymore," he said gently. Her glowing eyes widened. Shimmering with tears, she leaned her forehead against his chest, and for the first time since he found her, she did not tremble. The night passed slowly. Daniel forced himself to stay awake. Every sound outside made him tense. He expected the hunters to return, but they did not. Perhaps the leader's defeat had shaken them. Perhaps they were waiting for reinforcements. He didn't know, but he knew this peace would not last. At dawn, the sky glowed pale gray. Daniel pushed himself up. His body resisted, but the bond steadied him. The girl stirred, watching him carefully. "Leave?" she asked in a broken voice. Daniel nodded. "We can't stay here, more will come." He lifted her gently into his arms, though his legs shook. She was light, but the weight of responsibility felt heavier than stone. They left the ruins behind, moving through the misty forest, Daniel's senses still sharper than human. He could hear streams flowing far away, smell smoke from distant fires. The bond gave him warning, but also a strange comfort. He was no longer walking alone. As they traveled, Daniel thought about the leader's words. Her death means peace. Her life means war. He looked down at the girl. She was so small, so fragile. It was hard to believe her existence carried such weight. Yet he could feel the truth in her bond. Her bloodline mattered. Her life would change worlds. By afternoon, they reached a ridge overlooking the valley. Daniel stopped to catch his breath. The view stretched wide. Forests, rivers, mountains in the distance. Somewhere out there, enemies were gathering. He knew the fight was far from over. The girl tugged at his sleeve. He looked down, and she whispered, "Afraid?" Her glowing eyes searched his face. Daniel hesitated, then shook his head. "Not anymore," he said. "As long as I have you, I'll keep fighting." She blinked, then whispered a new word, one she had not used before. "Family." Daniel froze, his chest tightened. He had not expected that. Slowly, he nodded, his voice rough. "Yes, family." The bond pulsed warmer, softer. It was no longer just fire and survival. It was connection, trust, belonging. He realized then that the bite had not simply made him stronger. It had tied their lives together, not as strangers, but as something deeper, but peace never lasted. As the sun dipped lower, Daniel felt it, distant, sharp, a new presence through the bond. His skin prickled. He turned his head, and in the far valley, faint red lights flickered, more hunters, more ships. The girl saw his face change. She gripped his arm, whispering, "They come." Daniel nodded slowly, his eyes hardening. Then, "We'll be ready." He found a small hollow under the ridge where they could rest. He set her down gently. She curled up, exhaustion pulling her into sleep. Daniel sat beside her, his broken rifle across his knees. His body still ached, but the bond whispered strength into his veins. He looked at the sleeping girl, her face peaceful for the first time. He whispered softly, "I don't know why fate gave me this, but I won't run from it." His voice grew firmer. "You're more than survival to me now." The wind rustled through the trees, carrying the faint echoes of distant engines. The war was coming. He knew it. But as he tightened his grip on the rifle, he also knew this. He would not face it. As just a man, he was bonded, chosen, protector. Daniel leaned back against the stone, his eyes scanning the horizon. He whispered one last promise to the girl as she slept. Whatever comes, we'll face it together. The mark on his hand glowed brighter in the fading light, pulsing with her heartbeat, reminding him that he was no longer alone. The human had become her shield, her family, her hope. And though the galaxy might hunt them both, they would not break. Not now. Not ever.